The first tactic today is what we call the crane MCV rush. It's pretty ballsy and you risk losing your MCV, so you're only going to want to try this once in a while, especially, you want to know the map before you go into this. But what you do is you immediately, first thing, build a crane. Once the crane is built, plop it down, undeploy your MCV, and start sending it over to an enemy's base.
Construction vehicle ready to roll.
Building.
Yeah, we're ready.
While the MCV is on its way, use the crane to build a power plant, queue up a barracks, and a couple of base defenses.
Building.
When your MCV gets to the enemy base, immediately deploy it and place down your barracks and your base defenses. This will give you a couple of base defenses and a barracks right outside the enemy's base really early on in the game, and he probably won't have anything there waiting to stop it. This will put you in the perfect position to infantry rush, or even worse, engineer rush. However, if you fail and don't pull this off, you're going to put your main MCV at a big risk. So it's high risk, high reward, but when it pulls off, it'll absolutely stun the enemy. The mini MCV is like a normal MCV, except it can't build buildings, it can only capture ground control. This is a great way to get early expansion bases up and running, which is in large part going to be key to victory in Command & Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars. Start out by building a mini MCV right off the bat from your Defensive Structures tab. Send it out to a forward Tiberium base, or even the enemy's base if you're feeling ballsy. Plop it down, build some base defenses, and plop a couple refineries down. Having this extra income will help you succeed over the course of the game. Love it or hate it, classic C&C tank spam is back in Command & Conquer 3. The key to being a good tank spammer is being fast and having a good economy. What you're going to want to do is start out by building a couple of war factories. 2 is probably good, 3 may be a little too much if you don't have the appropriate economy to back it up. So start out by building a war factory, a refinery, and another war factory. Once your economy is in place, queue up a bunch of main battle tanks, whether they be Predator tanks, Raider tanks, Seekers, whatever, and immediately start sending them over to the enemy base when you've got 4 or 5 of them in a group.
The Scorpion's ready! The Scorpion's ready! Got it!
As you can see, you probably won't be able to take out the enemy's entire base with this initial rush, but it will put him on the defensive, and if you keep the pressure up, you're going to win in the long term. Just make sure that you're constantly churning out units and sending them at the enemy, and you have a good, strong economy going.
Scorpion's ready! The Scorpion's ready!
The Alien Buzzer unit is one of the most powerful infantry units in the game. It's fast, it's got good vision range, and it absolutely mauls human infantry. So what you're going to want to do is start out like a tank spam with 2 barracks and just begin churning out the buzzers as fast as you can. Send them to all important parts of the map: expansion Tiberium fields, Tiberium spikes, the enemy base, any important buildings that might be garrisoned. Use them as your eyes and ears of the battlefield. They'll be extremely handy for taking out any engineers that are attempting to rush your base, attempting to rush any TIB spikes, and also in large enough numbers you can actually use them against light buildings like the barracks or the war factory even. Use the buzzers to keep the opponent on the defensive, keep them off balance, keep attacking him from every angle. This will buy you time to tech up to the more powerful mid and late game alien units. Economy harassment and harvester harassment specifically is going to be a huge part of Command & Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars. Your best bet for doing this is using the light assault vehicles such as the Not Attack Bike, the GDI Pitbull, and the Alien Seeker tank. Start out by building a large force, 5 or more of these units, and immediately send them over to your enemy's primary Tiberium field. You should find waiting a couple of pretty undefended harvesters. Now, these units really need to be micromanaged to survive, so keep them on the move and keep them focusing on the harvesters. They may not be able to take the harvesters out, but they will force your opponent to withdraw them to safety, and an idle harvester brings in just as much money as a dead harvester. Doing this will keep your economy in the black and your enemy's economy in the red, and this will be the key to long-term victory.
Got it! Hit it! Got it! Yeah!
Fast teching. Now, if you've determined that your opponent's maybe somewhat of a noob, maybe is a little bit of a turtle, not too confident, not likely to attack you, what you might want to do is really surprise them with a fast tech. In the fast tech, you're pretty much going to forego building the early and mid-game units and spend all your money powering up your economy and getting up that tech tree. Once you've gotten up the tech tree and you've gotten the tier 3, and in the case of the aliens, the tier 4 units, immediately start pumping them out in mass and roll over to your enemy's base. He'll probably have some base defenses, some early to mid-game units, but if you do this fast enough, he won't ever see it coming and he won't be able to stop it. Be warned though, if you do this, you may be vulnerable to early game rushes, so you need to be absolutely sure that your opponent's not going to attack you. Keep sending out scouting parties so you know what he's doing at all time, and you should be able to pull this off with very little problem.
Let's do it. What do you have? Roll over. Take him down.
The walkers in C&C3 are extremely powerful, and eventually you're going to come up against a horde of walkers that is seemingly unstoppable. Using normal ground vehicles against them is likely to do nothing but get your guys killed. However, the walkers do have a couple extreme weaknesses. The first and most obvious weakness is that none of our walker units have any anti-air capability. So if you have the ability, build some orcas, some vertigo bombers, any of the alien units, and send them over to attack those walkers. They should have no trouble dispatching them, and will leave you with some walker husks that you might be able to capture later. If for whatever reason you don't have the ability to build aircraft, mass infantry, particularly disintegrators and rocket guys, are quite good at taking out the mechs. They simply can't deal with the numbers of infantry that you're able to throw at them cost for cost. So get those rocket guys in a big horde, build as many as you can afford to build, and send them over and take out those walkers. You should have no problem dealing with them.
Pay attention. Coming in clear, Commander. Fire! This is squad ready for combat. Get your sights!
Vehicles in C&C3 now feature directional armor, meaning that they've got more armor in the front than they do on their sides or the rear. So you're going to want to do everything you can to keep your armor facing the enemy. There are a couple different ways you can do this, either by using our formation preview, reverse move, or just plain old uber micro. Do everything you can to make sure that your tanks are taking shots in the front and that the enemy tanks are taking shots in the back, and you'll be rewarded by a big 50% damage increase. This can really turn the tide of the battle and will separate the men from the boys when it comes to the uber micro. Speaking of directional armor, one of our new innovations in Command & Conquer 3 Tiberium Wars is the concept of reverse moving your units. This can be extremely helpful because your units have directional armor and will take more damage when attacked from the back. You can use reverse move for all sorts of situations, and I expect to see it a lot in top levels of play. But a couple of obvious examples are, one, keeping your tanks out of trouble. When your tanks start to take a lot of damage, reverse move them back behind your lines rather than giving them a normal move. This means they won't turn around, they won't take those flanking armor hits, and they'll generally survive longer. You can also do this to lure your enemy into larger concentrations of your forces. Send out 1 or 2 units. Once they start getting attacked, reverse move back into a larger group that your enemy can't see. When he does see them, he'll likely lose the nerve to fight, turn around, and run. This will be your opportunity to get those shots in the back of his tanks and reap those huge directional armor benefits.
Let's take him on.
Walkers in C&C3, while immensely powerful, have one serious liability. When they die, they leave behind a husk that any engineer, friend or foe, can capture and restore the walker to working status with 50% health. So when your opponent attacks you, fight off his walkers and have some engineers ready to capture them when they're dead. You now have $3,000 walkers for the cost of a $500 engineer. On the flip side of that, when you're attacking with walkers, bring some engineers along, so when your walkers go down, you can immediately resurrect them and put them back into the fight. This will be extremely frustrating for your opponent, but should reap huge dividends for you as the commander.